Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Kaa crew, I'd like to welcome all of you today. My name is Andrew Kahanovsky. I'm CTO at Cybervision, the company behind the Kaa IoT Platform. I also literally have a crew helping me out in conducting the webinar today. We would like to discuss multiple things, so you will hear several of us talking about features they were responsible for in Kaa 0.8. I should say that our team is absolutely thrilled by the community feedback to this online event. Just to give you an idea, right now there are over 250 people tuned in, and still counting. We truly hope you will enjoy discovering the new features released in Kaa 0.8. Before we start, a little housekeeping, I'd like to mention a few things. So first of all, if you have any questions while the webinar is running, feel free to post them in a special window in your UI labeled questions. Normally it's on the right. We are aiming to reserve about 10 minutes in the end of this 1-hour webinar to go through the collected questions and provide you with the answers. Secondly, in the next few days, we will make all of the webinar materials, including the presentation and recording, available to you from the Kaa website, kaaproject.org. If you haven't done so yet, we welcome you to subscribe to the announcements on official Kaa channels. Okay, I think it's enough for the introduction. Let's get to business. Let us review real quick what we will be covering today. First things first, for those new to Kaa, we'd like to give a 10,000 feet overview of the platform. Then, as promised, we will make a detailed review of the key functional improvements in the recently released 0.8. Finally, we would like to take a quick look at the Kaa roadmap and introduce you to the upcoming functional improvements, so that those of you eager to try them out before the official release could already go and fetch the code from the development branches and try it out. So, what is Kaa? Kaa is the enterprise-grade, completely open-source Apache 2.0 licensed middleware platform for building the Internet of Things, products, and services. As you can see from this slide, Kaa lives between the hardware and cloud application worlds, allowing you to implement IoT products quickly and efficiently. So let us quickly go through some quick facts about Kaa 0.8. So first things first, some of you may not know, but we actually released 4 components, not only Kaa 0.8. In addition to Kaa, we released our UI. If you go to the GitHub repositories, you will see our UI, which is our engine for transforming our data structures into the web forms. This is how you create your data schemas in Kaa, and this is how you configure the data that is in your applications. Secondly, we updated and released Kaa Sandbox frame version 1.30. One of the most notable features in KSF 1.30 is the addition of the application bundles. Finally, we also updated and released sample applications that are shipped together with the Kaa Sandbox. The new version is 1.2.0. We have added several applications to match the expanded functionality of the Kaa core platform, and we also updated and improved some of the existing applications in this release. In the course of the release, we incorporated over 20 community contributions. We fixed over 40 bugs. More than 50 new features were introduced in this release across all of the components, and today we would like to concentrate on 7 of the most interesting additions to the Kaa functionality. So at this point, I would like to transfer the control to Andrei Shvaika, who will be guiding you through some of the features. Enjoy.
Hi everybody. I would like to start the review of new Kaa features from the common type library. As you probably already know, majority of Kaa features use Avro to define the schemas. You can treat CTL, or a common type library, as a repository of reusable Avro schemas, but with some significant improvements, like, for example, versioning, scopes, or dependencies support. CTL is currently supported by profiling feature. More features are coming soon. Let's review following use case. So for example, you may have two different products that you sell to your customers. One is thermostat and the second one is irrigation system. They both use different Kaa applications and report their location as a part of their client-side endpoint profile. They will also include some customer data as part of their server-side endpoint profile. Server-side endpoint profile is a new feature which is part of Kaa starting 08, and we are going to talk about this feature next. In this case, both of our schemas for customer information and location information should be shared between these two applications and can be stored in a CTL. Let's proceed to the server-side profile feature. The server-side endpoint profile feature covers following use cases. It provides you ability to assign secure information to your endpoint, and you can control this secure information from the server-side applications. Please note that this server-side information is not available for your endpoint, and your endpoint application cannot access it. So you can use the server-side data to group endpoints using profile filters, and you can also enrich your data collection mechanisms and using server-side profiles in log appenders. Of course, Kaa provides REST API and administration web UI for server-side profile management. So this allows you to build automatic solutions that populate server sides for tons of endpoints. By the way, you do not need to regenerate an SDK when you decide to upgrade your server-side profile schema. So you can do this in runtime, both schema updates and data updates of your endpoints. I would like to demonstrate how CTL and server-side profiles can be used together in order to impact behavior of our configuration demo from the sandbox. Let's open latest sandbox. And in this sandbox, we have a lot of configuration demos. So this is a single Kaa application that is available in different SDK languages and different platforms. We will use Java configuration in our case, a Java configuration demo. While binary is downloaded, I would like to walk through what we're going to demonstrate in this particular case. So configuration demo doesn't use any client-side profile, so it uploads empty profile. And we are going to create customer data type in CTL and populate server-side profile with this customer data. So we are going to assign certain customer entity to our device, and then we are going to impact configuration of this device by server-side actions. Okay, so I'm going to store this jar file and launch it. So you can see that on start of this sample application receives configuration from Kaa, which has useful links for developers, website, GitHub, docs, etc. So now we will push new configuration that is a customer homepage. In order to do this, I'm going to navigate to administration console and log in as developer user. I'm going to open tenant CTL and create new common type. So I will assign name to customer data and namespace something like org Kaa project D. I will add several fields. First field will be name, which is mandatory, and we will have default value to unknown. I will add one more field, which will be description. This will be optional as a string. So now I'm going to add this new type. And you can see two types in this tenant common type library. So one type has scope system, and this means that this type was created by a system administrator, and it is available for all tenants. The other type, customer data, is in scope tenant. This means that it was created in scope of current tenant and is available for all applications that belong to this tenant. Let's navigate to one of the applications, the configuration demo, and use this new type in server-side profile. So we will create server-side profile schema. Let's call it server-side profile. We will create new type, server-side profile, and the same namespace. The namespace actually is not very important. It can be different just for the demonstration purpose. Server-side profile. I will add only one field, which will be customer data. And I will use an FQN reference from SCTL, which will be our customer data field. So that's it. I've created server-side profile with version 1, and now I'm going to use the server-side and I've created server-side profile schema with version 1, and now I'm going to use this schema in order to populate server-side profile for my endpoint. I'm opening endpoint profiles viewer, which by the way is a new feature in Kaa 08. You're able to view state of your endpoint. I have only one endpoint because this endpoint corresponds to applications that I've just launched. So I'm going to open it. There is empty client-side profile, and I am going to edit server-side profile. So I picked our schema version that is 1. I'm opening customer data, and I will put something like customer A. Let's save this. So now we have assigned server-side point profile to our entity, basically to our application that we just launched. Now I'm going to create an endpoint group that will contain all endpoints that belong to customer A. I've navigated to endpoint groups and now clicking Add Endpoint Group. Here I will put group name something like Customer A Group, some weight, and we'll click Add. Once added, I'm able to assign certain configuration to this group. I'm going to open a configuration draft, and I want to replace all URL list with my items. So I will have something like customer A homepage. And this will be http customera.com. So I'm closing this, saving, and activating. The configuration is activated. However, our endpoint have not received this configuration yet. This is because we need to specify the profile filter that basically tell what endpoints belong to this group. So I'm going to add a profile filter to the group, and here I will type a filter body. So the filter body syntax is very simple, and it is well described on our documentation page. There is a predefined variable SP, which is server profile, and then I put dot customer data and then dot name to get the name of this customer data, and then something like equals customer A. One more feature that we introduced in Kaa 0.8 is ability to test your filter body. So in order to test the filter body, you are able to specify client and server-side profiles. In our case, I will specify the server-side profile. So in case it is unknown and I press test filter, it replies me that filter is not matched. So now I'm going to populate my values that I specified for the endpoint and test it again. It specifies this filter is matched. For example, if I make some mistake, like I'm trying to address an existing field, like name W, for example, and test it, I will get a meaningful error that my property is not present in the data record. So I'm going to correct my filter, test it again. I'm sure that filter is matched. So I can now close, save, and activate this filter. Now I can see that my endpoint received new configuration body, which is customer A homepage equal to customer.a.com. Of course, this sample application can be improved, and in real time, in real life, devices will receive meaningful configurations that address your use case. I hope you enjoy this demo. I will now pass the presentation to my colleague Dmitry, who is responsible for building data collection applications and data collection feature for Kaa 0.8.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Now I'll open my slide. Here is it. Kaa 0.8 opens you to new ways of transferring your log data to an external services. Today, we'll review two new log appenders that come with Kaa 0.8 out of box. First one is for Apache Storm, real-time computation system, and the second one is for Apache Kafka, a high-throughput distributed messaging system. During my presentation, I will start with a brief overview of new log appenders and then dive into the practical demonstration. Let's get started from Apache Storm. Integration with Storm covers the following use cases. Firstly, it provides an ability to ingest real-time data from various devices and sensors into Apache Storm for distributed processing. And secondly, process collected data on the fly without any delay. On the other hand, integration with Kafka covers the following use cases. You can integrate your application with external ones using the widely adopted distributed messaging system. Additionally, you can transfer huge amounts of telemetry data across a large number of nodes in a secure and replicated way. You can see the sample solution architecture on the bottom of the slide. The most common approach is to collect data from endpoints and transfer it to analytics system. In this case, it's Storm and Kafka. Here you can see the client application collecting raw data from sensors. Then Kaa SDK structures this data and delivers it to Kaa cluster in a secure, efficient, and reliable way. Kaa cluster then transfers this data to Storm topology using Flume log appender, while Kafka log appender pushes the same data to Kafka cluster. We use Flume appender to deliver data to Storm because, it's always easier to reuse existing solution. Let me demonstrate how to transport endpoint data to Kafka and Storm using Kaa log appender. First, download and set up Storm Server from Storm Analytics bundle. Secondly, run Storm Server and Kafka console consumer so we will see logs that comes from Kaa. Thirdly, set up Kafka and Storm log appenders. And lastly, run client application that generates and sends logs to Kaa. So let's open the Kaa Sandbox. Okay, we need to change this path after Andrew. Yeah, here's our sandbox. Before we start, I want to mention one of the sandbox usability improvements. Applications that may depend on each other or demonstrate same features are now grouped into application bundles. Now let's get back to the demo. In the sandbox, go to the Storm Analytics demos and click on the Java application to download sources. I have already downloaded them, so we can skip this step. Here I have console with my host Linux machine, where you can see the sources from application has been already downloaded and extracted to these folders. First of all, we need to go to Kaa Storm Server to start our Storm server. We execute java -jar command and run the jar from the target folder. Yeah. And while the Storm server is starting, we will start Kafka consumer so we can receive our logs from the Kaa. So we go to Kafka folder. The script goes out of box with Kafka and it's placed under bin folder. It's called Kafka console consumer. It required two parameters. First is a topic name, which uses Kaa, and the second is zookeeper host name. I have it running on the next host name. Okay, all seems to be good. The next step we need to do is to go to our administration UI on the Kaa and configure log appenders so Kaa can determine where we need to send our logs. So we go to administrative console. Here we find our Storm data analytics demo and go to the log appenders menu. Here you see predefined Storm appender. We click on it and go to the bottom side of configuration. Here you see localhost by default. We change it to our Storm host name. Here is it. And that's all we need to do from the default configuration. It's all changes. Then we click on the Save button on the top of the screen. And the second step we need to do is to create Kafka appender. We will set name Kafka log appender. And of course, we chose the type to Kafka. As for the Storm, we need to configure our Kafka server host name. And this is the same as for the Storm. Here you see the topic name configured by default to Kaa, just as in our Kafka console consumer. Okay, that's all. We click on the Add button. Here you see our appenders created and configured. We maximize our Storm and Kafka window so we can see how and when our logs comes to servers. Okay, next step, we need to run our client application that generates and sends logs to Kaa. We go to the JStorm folder and run it with the java -jar command from the target folder. Okay, let's wait a few seconds to this application to boot up. Okay, and then yeah, we see our logs successfully delivered to Storm in this window. You can see, and to the Kafka in this window. So we can see that our logs contain some information about sample zone, panel ID, and other information. It's always configurable. You can set any format, any schema to the logs. And that's pretty much it for log appenders. Now I would like to introduce Anton, who is lead mobile engineer on Kaa. He will continue our presentation.
Hi there, thanks Dmitry. Give me a second and just make myself a presenter. Okay, so let's get started. Now I will show you our brand new Objective-C endpoint SDK, which was released to help you creating iOS applications. In the previous versions of Kaa, you were able to build C SDK for iOS, but it's much easier and faster to create applications by using native SDK. From now on, you can also enjoy using Apple Mix and Match feature that allows you bridging Objective-C SDK with your Swift application. We have also updated the Kaa Sandbox with several iOS applications, and now I'm going to show you one of them. So in order to do that, we have to switch to Sandbox. Okay, here it is. So we could just apply iOS filter in order to see all the existing applications for iOS, but we could just open up Monitor Demos bundle and scroll down the iOS sources. By clicking on the source button, it will generate the SDK for the current server, and you have to just download and compile it. I already passed these steps, but so we have only just to get started with the Xcode, with the pre-integrated application. I also would like to mention that in order to build SDK, you only have to get Cocoa Pods and Xcode installed on your machine, and that's it. As you may see on the screen, the public API for the SDK is pretty similar to the Java and C++. So if you are familiar with them, you'll also feel yourself comfortable while using the Objective-C SDK. In this application, this example, we will use the iOS simulator, which I will run. So the network operator data will not be presented, but you will have just mocked phone GPS location. Once the phone GPS location gets changed, we will trigger uploading logs to the server. So you'll see here, like in the real time, we get mock GPS location change, and we are sending the logs. And we have there the field, the logs delivered. So this sample application, in addition, demonstrates the new log delivery callback feature, which allows you to track delivery status of the particular log bucket. Well, this ends my Objective-C demonstration part, but I have a few more improvements that I would like to share with you. The first one is the SDK profile. Let me switch back to the administration console. In order to show you that, I have to open one of the sample applications. So let it be sample monitor that I just showed you. In the left pane, you can see the SDK profiles, which after clicking on it, you can just check out what's created. It's a draft one, but you can also add the new ones, where you specify the notification profile schemas or whatever else you need. So the main idea behind the SDK profiles is that in the real world, we often have the same set of features for the application on different platforms. From the version 0.8 and on, you will be able to specify the set of features in the SDK profile and then generate SDKs depending on what available platforms we have. So this is pretty much it about. Let me check what we have next. So another improvements I would like to highlight is the major Kaa cluster infrastructure update. It was introduced as a part of Kaa 0.8 release. Prior to this release, there were 3 Kaa server components: Kaa Control, Bootstrap, and Operation servers. They were available for installation as individual Debian or RPM packages and run in separate OS processes. Starting from Kaa 0.8, these servers are merged into one. With a new cluster infrastructure, the deployment procedure became a lot more easier and maintenance got greatly simplified. Additionally, server memory consumption is significantly optimized, and as well as the general performance has increased. So, for example, minimum memory consumption for the servers is decreased from 750 megabytes down to 250 megabytes. So it's pretty enough. Apart from these features used during the webinar, there are a few more ones that I would like to briefly outline. So you can see them being separated at the bottom of the slide. In the latest 0.8 release, we have introduced the endpoint profile access via REST API, which was often requested by the community members. Also, you are now able to import or export log appenders as well as user verifier configurations, which come handy when there is a need to reuse or share them. Along that, you now generate the SDK sources for jar files, so you do not need to decompile them anymore. And last but not the least is that we improved the user experience by applying the IP address auto detection when booting the sandbox. So that's about it for my part, and I'm passing to Andrew Kochanowski, who will briefly discuss our future plans and Kaa roadmap. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So let us now talk not only about the past, but also about the future. As you can see from this slide, this has been quite a ride. In the very end of 2015, while everyone was enjoying their Christmas vacation, we sneakily released the last maintenance release in 0.87 series, Kaa 0.74. Later in February, we released 0.8 that we have been covering today. For those of you who have not noticed yet, yesterday we started the release process for 0.81. At this very moment, you can already download this maintenance release from the Kaa website. We are still waiting for the AWS AMIs to propagate to all regions, which is when AMI links will be also updated. Now, even more exciting is that we have 2 feature releases in ongoing development. 0.9, scheduled for mid-April, will be an evolutionary update to the Kaa Avocado Archipelago series. 1.0 that we are aiming to release in the end of the spring or beginning of the summer, on the other hand, will be revolutionary to the point that we even picked a new funny serious name for it. Please welcome Kaa Banana Beach. Let us now get more specific on the already confirmed scope of these releases. 0.8, still Avocado Archipelago, will contain several major features. The first one being pre-shared security keys that you will be able to provision to your Kaa clusters prior to the endpoints registering against the server. We will review and update the provisioning APIs for the security keys, which will allow you to not only upload the keys but also revoke them, effectively disconnecting endpoints from your Kaa installation and revoking their access. We are also looking to provide support for MariaDB as an alternative for an embedded SQL database that Kaa runs on. The reason why we chose MariaDB is for a good support of clustering capabilities. So in 0.9, we will make instructions on how to run your Kaa installation on MariaDB available to the community. The next is we are planning to incorporate cryptographic algorithms in the default transport that ships with Kaa SDK. As you may already know, the default transport in Kaa that is incorporated in Java, C++, and Objective-C SDKs uses bidirectional RSA key challenge, so that both the server and the endpoint verify each other's identity before exchanging data. And they also use AES 128 or 256 key to encrypt the session. So this is a very secure transport that comes by default. And right now, this encryption is not available in the C SDK, and we are planning to fix that in 0.9 and provide you with the reliable and also secure protocol out of the box with the C SDK. We are also planning to make Bootstrap server configurations runtime configurable for all of the SDKs. So as you already probably know, when generating Kaa SDKs, you basically get your Bootstrap locations embedded into the SDK. For some of the Kaa users, it became important to be able to replace this configuration and replace the location of the Bootstrap servers after the generation of the SDK. So we will provide you with this option that will allow you to migrate your endpoints across the Bootstrap servers and make this migration process avoid the regeneration of the SDKs. Some of the Kaa installations already run on Docker, and we are planning to add official support for Docker deployments in 0.9. So we'll be providing instructions on how to deploy your Kaa production installation to the Docker infrastructure. We are also integrating with Juju, and we'll be charming up Kaa with Juju in 0.9. With our friends at Canonical, we are planning to make it easier to deploy production clusters, and especially large-scale production clusters, and Juju is a perfect fit for that. Last but not the least, in 0.9, we are planning to review and update the GMX performance metrics that are exposed by Kaa cluster, and we will also publish an updated documentation for all of these features. Now, let's talk about 1.0. So 1.0 is the release that we've been looking forward for quite some while. This is a very major release for us, and we are reviewing quite a few things in Kaa for 1.0 for each. First things first is that In 1.0, we will review the architecture and make Kaa significantly more modular. Kaa Core will allow you to create modules, to create plugins, and plug them into your Kaa installations to extend the functionality of the platform. Further, we are right now engaging with quite a few ISVs who expressed interest in developing their own modules for Kaa. That will become available after 1.0, and they will be extending Kaa functionality with new functions and also functions from our partners. Essentially, their private functionality that is currently requires special integrations will be readily available out of the box as a Kaa plugin. The next thing is, and it's also a large initiative, is the development of something that we call a protocol adapters framework. So the intention of protocol adapters framework is to simplify the connection of the devices to Kaa servers, those devices that do not run Kaa SDKs on board of those. This is possible right now, but the integration procedure is quite involved. So we have been receiving lots of requests to make it possible to connect devices that where you cannot update the firmware, where you cannot update the SDK, to connect devices that already expose some sort of protocol like CoAP or MQTT, and be able to interpret the data coming from these devices and dispatch this data to the Kaa services. So we are working on the architecture and working on the implementation to make this possible. Well, the last item here is, as you have noticed in 0.8, we introduced a common type library, which is currently used in the Kaa profiling features, both the client and the server profiles. In 1.0, we are planning to complete migration of all of the Kaa modules to CTL so that your schemas will be safe and sound in a single repository that will be easier to maintain and version and migrate across your Kaa installations. Well, this concludes the presentation that we prepared for today. It was truly amazing to have you all here. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the webinar interface right now. We have already received quite a few questions, so I think many of those got answered in the chat, but I think we will talk about some of these in the moment. Okay, do you have a list?
I'm actually browsing the list right now in the webinar. Let
me
open this page, and I'll try to answer them as fast as possible.
Okay, so if you have any questions, this is the perfect time to post them into the chat. If you don't, we are looking forward to seeing you all on our resources and the community forum, and looking forward to your success stories with Kaa. Thank you so much for attending. It was great having you here.